This is Katrina Van Huss, and this is the Seeding Social Good podcast. This content today is a deep dive into what helps us do more good faster. In this episode, we'll talk about the real state of tech and fundraising. And we have a very interesting guest today who's been deep on the inside. We're going to talk about bridging the gap between technology promise and reality in nonprofit and fundraising ecosystems with a focus on Salesforce integrations and emerging community-based fundraising trends. Let me have you all say hi to Shantanu Bose, who was most recently SVP Enterprise Solutions and Strategy at GoFundMe and Classy, now GoFundMe Pro. How did you get there?
I ended up there almost 10 years ago, maybe more than that, 15 years ago. And I found that, wow, this nonprofit industry as a whole has so many challenges. I've always believed that technology can bridge these types of challenges and bring communities together, bring people together, and, for social good. And so that's kind of how I started with Classy. They were looking for someone to build the next generation architecture. It was with that technology mindset that I got in there and had the wonderful opportunity to grow the organization and build online fundraising tools, nonprofits of all sizes and dimensions, and all kinds of causes. 5 years later, I reflect on that time as a wonderful learning opportunity, but also a place where I really got to experiment, learn how to fail fast, and deliver value to our customers. As you can imagine, nonprofit customers have a lot of challenges, and easy to use fundraising tools are something that can truly help them deliver to their mission.
So that the folks listening can get an idea of how well you know their world. When you started at Classy, how many people worked there in the technology department?
Oh, that was a really small team. I want to say less than 50.
Okay.
Altogether.
Yeah. And when you left?
When I left, that was close to, I want to say 200.
Wow. And before you came to Classy, give me a brief description of your background.
Yeah. So before Classy, I was with Blackbaud for almost 9 years. That was my entry into the nonprofit ecosystem. I worked for a very small company that was doing online fundraising tools called Kintera in San Diego. They were doing the peer-to-peer walk ride pains. And that's an aspect that Blackbaud didn't have enough of. And so that was an acquisition. I ended up at Blackbaud then for, a total of 8 to 9 years, really grounding experience where, again, looking at some of the largest enterprise level customer nonprofits to the really small ones that just need help with basic CRM and fundraising.
Got it. So right now you are taking a bit of a sabbatical, and that's one reason I wanted to talk to you, because you've had a moment to breathe. I find that when people retire or take sabbatical or go out on maternity leave, they back up enough to get a better view of the beast.
I'm at a point in my career where I've got this experience, and I love building, but it's more than just building platforms or engineering technology. I'm asking myself this bigger question: how can we further use technology to support communities? Now, the trends are, things like there will be active conversations on X or threads about drug usage in certain parts of the city. How does that overlay into where food deserts also exist? Because now you're looking at communities that are struggling with twin problems of poverty and rampant drug usage. From there, they looked into how does the county help? Where are existing nonprofits servicing? The whole intention was to try and build this map where now a small business owner or a potential small business owner, let's say who wants to start a food truck business, can actually target those communities and say, oh, okay, I can actually create a profitable business running a food truck, but also serving my community. This is not knowledge that is very easy to get at today. That was the genesis of the project. They've been working at it for a while. But that's kind of going back to the question on how can technology serve a community, you're talking about, even if you think of a food bank, they have a limited amount of resources.
Right.
How do they best serve communities? It's usually community leaders who will step up and say, here's where a food pantry should be. And they try to match that. But now we can use technology and approach small businesses or new franchise businesses that are looking into the food delivery and say, hey, here are some potential target markets that can both help the community as well as sustain you and help you grow your business.
I want to ask you some more questions. It feels like, from my perspective, I'm not a technologist, but it feels like about 10 years ago, Salesforce was the answer to pretty much everything. Like,
Sure.
if you're like, well, I really want to scratch my butt on Thursday, you can build that in Salesforce. It seems like that turned out not to be true for the most part. Can you address that? It's sort of the build it or buy it thing, and why it feels, to me at least, why so many of my clients and my friends own Salesforce, and they also own a bouquet of third-party platforms that are hooked to Salesforce in what I believe they originally thought they could build inside Salesforce. Can you talk about that more dispassionately than I can? Because
I've been a partner working with Salesforce for a while, and also with the lens of serving our nonprofit customers. A lot of them have really large investments in Salesforce. And we're talking sometimes in the millions, right? Because when you look over like something like the TCO over 5 years, that's definitely in the millions, as these large to medium-sized organizations have gotten into using Salesforce. Like any other software system or platform that you adopt, there's always an adoption curve. There's always the promise of how it's going to help you grow, how it's going to serve your mission. I think this is not an indictment or anything like that. But too often we are probably, as technologists, wowed by the factor that what was previously maybe a manual job can now be done in a very automated fashion. The whole promise of Salesforce is something that previously was maybe in a relational database, very obscure, very much hands-off. With Salesforce, you can now open it up to your organization. You can have not only your financial folks look at it, use it, but also your fundraising team. That's probably the largest usage in any given nonprofit. Too often there are competing roles when they're looking at a CRM system like Salesforce. They are looking at, how can I best serve my own need? Maybe what's right for financial reporting is not quite what the donor management team needs. Costs. And when I say costs, it's not just in terms of dollars, but it's costs in terms of hours and time, everything from training your team members on the new solution. What I've often seen is when you adopt a solution without thinking through all the use cases, all the constituents in your org that it's supposed to serve, that's when you get into a little bit of trouble, because Salesforce by itself is not going to solve everything for the donor management team as well as the financial team. You start thinking about a relational database and you just try to map that over and start creating a whole bunch of custom objects, for example, in Salesforce. You've created a whole new set of work and problems for yourselves, because all these custom objects need to be in sync with whatever that basic model was. And the automations that you've now built into Salesforce, you start depending on those automations and adopt a new platform, like an online fundraising platform, like Classy. That's my experience. Now you have to rethink all of that, because there's only certain custom objects or custom fields that you have to manage. So it becomes that relearning, that refactoring, and in the spirit of partnership, when we are talking about a one-way sync where data just comes from one system into another, that's one set of problems. You can probably solve them at small scale. But when it's a bidirectional sync, when both systems are talking to each other, now you're talking about a level of complexity that you need some good, clear minds to crack. You and I are Salesforce admins. We are in the system and we are fixing address problems. We can probably do 20 a day, easy. But now comes giving season or a big event, and that small problem is now compounded. So that's kind of what I've seen on the ground as an example of where you have to really think through. And as you choose a technology, you have to think about the workflows that work for you. That's a great question. I don't know if this is being discussed. If you were to talk to any of the really mature organizations, I'm sure at Turnkey, you've seen some of this yourself. You've got probably a set of, I'll call them anti-patterns that, these are the rules that you don't break. If you've got your Salesforce set up this way, you're going to, you're in a world of hurt. The first thing you have to do is remove all these anti-patterns and make the tool behave with the original intention of how it, as close as you can to the model out of the box and keeping that level of simplicity.
Right. Do you think does it ever happen that people build in job protection by creating fixes that are hard to manage?
I would hope not, but I can certainly see that happening. And maybe it's not necessarily by intention. I believe in the good of humanity. So I believe
we want to think
maybe
that
more, it's maybe driven by, I need a fix in 20 hours, as opposed to necessarily a team being forced to think of it as job protection. I could see it happen that way, but maybe it's more like you've been with the organization for a while. You believe this is the structure that works. And you have to have some conviction. You should always be open, in my mind, about change and whether it's serves the mission.
Change is statistically the new path, according to psychologists, has to be 200% better than the current path for us to make a move. Not 10%, not 20%, not 50%, 100% better or 200% better.
That's $1 million question. Pun intended. I think it's an assessment of the current tools and services that you have and being brutally honest with what the intention was and whether it's serving that purpose.
So that's the first decision, to do the assessment. That's the first
decision is to do it brutally honestly, not trying to protect. I emphasize that because a lot of the times leaders will get into it as a pro and con kind of discussion. It has to be more than that. It has to be brutally honest with the original intention of what that technology or that was supposed to serve. That's the first one I would say, that assessment.
Okay. So not to do with the digital infrastructure, but with the general strategy of a nonprofit, what I've learned over three and a half decades is that it's really hard to have that conversation because there are so many emotions and vested interest and symbolic ownership wrapped up in it.
And now as a leader, you're looking for that change. That brutally honest picture needs to be evaluated in terms of humans, but you may have some very hard decisions facing you, but you may have built up a whole data science team because the thing to do 2 years back was build a data science team, build your own analytics. And now you realize that, I can get a lot of this out of X technology, a Snowflake, or Tableau. How best can I utilize them? Rather than thinking of it as an end outcome, like, if I make this decision, I immediately have to let go of my data science team. Maybe it's not an end all. And that's an opening. I don't know if a lot of leaders are willing to be vulnerable enough to have that discussion.
I have a theory that the United States invests so heavily in defense because none of us really understand it on the civilian side. So when someone says they're going to bomb us, we're like, how much money do you need? I wonder, does that dynamic also happen with CEOs of nonprofits who it just looks like a black box to us? We don't know what happens inside it. And so we are afraid to question. Does that happen?
I think it used to happen. I'm pretty sure it used to happen, and it probably still happens. But from my personal experience, I've seen a lot of folks in that CTO CIO role now really starting to question it, really starting to question a vendor, I'll just use that term and say, okay, I really want to understand the return on my investment. You can't just throw white papers at me. You will have to prove it to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great approach when they have that leverage. I'm nervous that all but the biggest enterprise nonprofits have that type of leverage. So what about the medium or small organization? They may not necessarily have that leverage and take what they get and keep going. But the small ones are also some of the most innovative. We've seen that at the
Yes.
collaboratives over the
Yeah.
years. They're also the
Yes.
fastest ones to adopt change. So I think it's changing. I don't know if it's
Mhm.
changing fast enough, but I do see that conversation at least happening when evaluations or RFPs are out there.
Okay. So imagine you're whispering in a CEO's ear and you're coaching that CEO and how she's going to manage her digital team. What three questions do you say to her? Ask these three questions when someone comes to you for a major budget.
The first question would be all about efficiency and growth, right? How is this going to actually grow our resources to help our mission? That should be the first paramount question you answer. Because if it fails at that first question, everything else is irrelevant. The second one is, how does this change or innovate us to put us in a far better place 2 years from now, 5 years from now? It's not just doing something faster for the sake of doing something faster. We always struggle with that connection. So I'm a donor. I'm giving to this cancer institute because I've probably just gone through a traumatic experience of losing a loved one. Because if it's not just in the moment that I'm supporting them, and it doesn't always have to be financially, right? It's just me being an invested fundraiser, supporter of their cause. And this is a partnership for life. That's where a nonprofit, I think, differs from a for-profit company. And it's that impact. If I can truly bridge that, then I will be that supporter for life or sustainer for life.
I love that.
And then as a donor supporter, I have more fulfillment. And of course, there's the cost. So for me, impact is always what drives it.
Very good. All right. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions I didn't prepare you for. So my apologies. One of the things I've noticed on a lot of fundraising and donor page platforms is tipping, and it's driving
Sure.
profitability. Michael Wasserman with Tiltify wrote a compelling article recently that painted tipping in a negative light from the nonprofit perspective. Not that it's misleading or illegal, but that it could potentially hurt nonprofits because it's great not to have to go to your boss and ask for budget,
That's right.
and
That's right.
tipping allows you to do that, even though in the long run, Wasserman made a good argument that it hurts the donor relationship. What are your thoughts?
This is a discussion that needs to be had for sure. From personal experience, leaving the nonprofit sector alone for a second. Personally, I am tired because it feels like every time I'm buying something or there's a service, the tip is being presented as a service fee right up front. There's a lot of folks that are still embedded in that thought process. I remember, I think it was Dan Plotho who's been this. I was thinking this for a while,
Yeah.
where it's like, why don't we treat nonprofits just like we treat for-profit companies? So I think tipping is trying to bridge that and saying, hey, would you like to support this platform? Well,
Right.
I think that's too much of a knee-jerky reaction. It should be nuanced, should be based on what the need of the nonprofit is. It goes back to serving the mission. As long as you drive from that and can message that appropriately to the donor, you should be fine.
Should a and I'm asking the technology guy about tipping because it's so wrapped up in technology and how it's presented and how it works. If a nonprofit is buying software, how important is this or the flexibility of that setting to their purchase in your mind?
I want to go one step further and say, I would challenge that provider to give me that flexibility. Maybe I use tipping only in my arts and cultural gala events. Maybe I don't use it on my general donation. Maybe I don't use it when I'm trying to have a 5K memorial run.
Major gift slips through. It should bump it out.
Exactly. So I think it's like anything in your tool set. You want that flexibility.
Okay.
And
Very
and
good.
so and that flexibility gives both the nonprofit, better ability to serve its constituent, as well as the platform itself is now has flexibility in how it derives its revenues.
Yeah, I like that. All right, I'm going to switch you to AI. I want you to address both any fears that you have and what you see that could be positive coming out of AI becoming part of our everyday lives in nonprofits. So go with the positive side first. What's the potential?
Yes, I mean, I think there's definitely a lot of upside to adoption of AI tools or an AI-based platform. I think where it's really compelling is that it allows for a lot of mundane tasks to be automated or a set of workflows to be stitched together. And this is where the real power is, right? If I can reduce your cognitive overload and take care of 5 mundane things that you do, you will hopefully take that freed up time and do something else that serves the mission better. So if you are a major gifts officer and the AI tool is capable of automating 5 of those things that you would do as a major gifts officer, let's keep it very simple. A very simple workflow. You receive a major gift after a solicitation and you want to thank them. So the fact that you could create that targeted list in 5 minutes and not 5 days, the fact that you could thank them with pre-canned templates that are curated out of your experience with dealing with your specific subset of major donors, it makes it a compelling thing. So I think that's the vision that I resonate with a lot in general, usage of AI tools.
I think you and I see it the same way. My husband is on the cusp of releasing a book, and the book started out with the premise how to write like a psychologist for fundraising. But as he went through it, he realized that that is of less value than showing people how to take the psychological principles, train AI on them, add in your own mission information, and have it write for you. To your point, you can't ever just publish what it produces, but it gets you a long way down the road, doesn't it? He's changing the entire book to include the use of an LLM to assist. So completely agree there. So tell me, what's the Black Mirror version of AI and nonprofit?
My fear is as long as they understand the ramifications, you have to invest some time in understanding what it can do for you. I see a pervasive push to just go try it. Just go try 5 things. Just go try 10 things. So now, instead of reducing that cognitive load, we're adding to it. I was already in this multitask world. I was trying to do 5 things when I only had space for 3 to do them properly. Now I feel there's an additional push. There's this thing that I must now crack open. Well, if you don't have the time and priority for it, then you're going to do a poor job with it. Now you've just said, hey, I'm just going to make a draconian rule. You see this in the for-profit side a little bit more. I've been seeing it in a lot of LinkedIn posts, like CEOs congratulating each other on how many people they got rid of because they adopted it. You already have reduced resources. You're scratching for time. If you just experiment for the sake of experimentation and not bring those learnings back, then I think we fail. That's my fear, that we adopt at the surface level just to check some checkbox that we are doing something with AI, and it doesn't really solve the core problem.
Do you think that the CTOs are taking appropriate ownership of integrating AI into organizations?
I would hope so. I don't have a formed opinion yet. It seems to be fairly new. I'm hearing mostly about the challenges they're facing. You can also see it in slow adoption curves. We started with Salesforce, so you can see the adoption of, for example, Agentforce hasn't gone as quickly as they wanted initially.
I could ask ChatGPT this, but I'm going to ask you instead. Is there any risk, or how high is the risk of inadvertently disclosing constituent data through use of ChatGPT and the like to ask questions of data?
I'm glad you think I should provide you with an answer better than or equal to ChatGPT. It's gotten better. I do think that there is a risk. And that's because with ChatGPT or Claude or any of the AI tools, you have to read the small print. If you're in a highly regulated industry, like most nonprofits are, you have to be very careful on what you train it on and what you use it for. So definitely look for enterprise licenses, definitely look for the fenced in data guarantees that these platforms now have. You have that data in your CRM system. If your CRM system is not on top of a robust identity login authentication system, you can have hackers get into that. You don't want to be leaking your constituent data by just adopting AI tools.
All right, we're almost out of time, but I have one more question, and it is this. I see a lot of collaboration in other areas of specialty and nonprofit, chief development officers, peer-to-peer program leaders, mission leaders. They often get together in small groups and they talk to each other in order to advance their causes. I don't see that in technology. Why is that? Is there a highly competitive nature that all of you have that, that quiet demeanor hides? I don't know. I'm wondering now, like, are you a killer, really?
Yeah, I think you're bringing a chuckle to my, it's funny, but I think it is pervasive in certain areas in the tech industry. You will see this a lot in Silicon Valley in the Bay Area amongst startup founders. They will often go to retreats. They will have technology sharing ideas. There are these little conventions that someone puts together and gets some very interesting speakers, or think of it as very private little TED Talk forums. These do happen, but they are probably very pervasive in a fast moving tech environment. This is from looking into that space without a nonprofit angle. I don't think it's happening quite in the nonprofit space. There's probably an explanation for that. I don't know why, or maybe it's a factor of most CIOs or CTOs in the nonprofit space are already stressed for time.
So we'll run a little test. We'll run a little test. I will make an offer. I will facilitate at least one gathering of up to 10 people. If people reach out to me, and I will invite you as well, Shantanu, we will facilitate an hour-long experience sharing. If we get the outreach, the only way to get the offer is to listen to this podcast. Just email me or hit me online and I will put it together. If we get at least 10 people, I think that would be fascinating. Here's my theory. You guys are all cowboys, really. Like, don't touch my stuff. And I'm a cowboy. That's just my theory. But we'll see if I'm proven wrong by outreach. I think it would be great. It would be enlightening.
I'd love for you to be proven wrong.
It would be an enlightening conversation for me. Change starts with just one person, and that person is you. If today's episode got your gears turning, share it with your network and drop us a review. That review helps more people find us and spread the good. Until next time, this is Katrina with Seeding Social Good. Stay inspired, keep making waves, and let's create a better world together.